Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. All right, so this is a continuation of the previous lesson. All right, so because a friend of mine asked me a question, and so he asked me, how can we write well if we don't have a solid English foundation? All right, so previously in the previous lesson, we should have learned something. So that would be the 8 word classes. Okay, so if you still remember, so they are the nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, determiners, pronouns, and conjunctions. All right. Now, this time we are going to cover another thing. All right. So that would be the sentence constituents, or maybe you should be able to tell that these are the basic sentence structures that you have learned so far. Okay. So I hope that, well, by now you should have learned these sentence structures, and these would be very useful for your writing. Okay. Because if you don't ever know some of the the sentence structures, then it would be very difficult for me to continue. Yeah, so so these are the sentence constituents we usually come across. Okay. The subject, verb, object, complement, and adverbial. Yeah, so you should be quite familiar with them, I guess. Yeah, so I hope so. Yeah, so maybe we can have a look at these sentence structures together. Okay. Yeah, so the simplest sentence structure would be the subject plus verb. Okay, so that is what we call the as and V. Okay, as V structure. So it could be quite simple. Okay, so just like this one, she is singing. All right, so she obviously is the subject, is singing is the verb. Okay, so that would be an example. Okay, what about the second sentence structure would be the subject, verb, object. Okay, so that is what we call the SVO sentence structure. Okay, subject, verb, object. So an example would be like this. She teaches English. Then she is the subject, teaches would be the verb, whereas English is the object. All right, so that's very, very simple. Okay, now let's move on to another one. So that is what we call the SVOO. All right, so you may see that, well, the O in the middle, it's slightly smaller. Why? Because this is an indirect object. Okay, so that is an indirect object. So, but then afterwards, so we have the bigger O. All right, so it stands for the direct object. So basically, it's the subject, verb, the indirect object, and direct object. All right, so it's followed with 2 objects here. Okay, so an example here would be she teaches me singing. Okay, and she is the subject, teaches would be the verb, me would be the indirect object, and the direct object would be singing. Yeah, so that would be the case. All right, so that is the structure. And what about SVC? So C stands for the complement. And what about the verb? So here is the linking verb. So you may find that it's a little bit different from the previous verb that we have been seeing so far. Yeah, so this is the linking verb. Yeah, so just like this example, she is confident. Okay, so she is confident. The subject is she, and the verb is, and confident is the complement. Okay, yeah, so you can call it as an adjective. Obviously, this one is an adjective, right? But then when we are going to describe it in a sentence and using the sentence constituents to describe it, then this one would be what we call the complement. Okay. And then what about another structure would be the subject, verb, object, and complement. Okay, so this looks a little bit complicated, but then still it is a very simple sentence. And so an example would be like this. He found his brother a very curious person. Okay, he found his brother a very curious person. So how are we going to divide it into different parts? Then he is the subject, found would be the verb, his brother is the object, and a very curious person would be the complement. Okay, so it's the noun phrase here instead of a single noun. All right, so that's the complement. And then also we have another structure. So it starts with there. Okay, so there be, and afterwards then we have the subject. And certainly after the subject, then we can follow it with some other things. Okay, so just like this one, there is a turtle trapped in a net. Okay, there is a turtle trapped in a net. So there is there. Be is the is. Okay, a turtle will be the subject that we're talking about. And then the verb in the passive voice, that is the past participle, would be trapped. Okay, so because, well, that is the passive voice because the turtle is trapped in a net. Okay, so that is why it's the passive voice. And then in a net is the prepositional phrase. Okay, because it starts with the preposition in here. Okay, so that's the location, or yeah, so where the turtle is trapped. Okay, so we can tell where. Yeah, so that would be the there, be structure. And finally, we have the adverbial. Okay, so we haven't mentioned the adverbial before. Okay, so here is the adverbial. Okay, so adverbial, so what does it mean by adverbial? Adverbial is that giving more information about the time, the place, and the manner. Okay, so it can appear or be placed at the beginning of the sentence, in the middle, or at the end of the sentence, depending on the focus or the emphasis you would like to put. All right, so usually this one, the adverbial, can be put anywhere in a sentence. Okay, so maybe we can have a look at these examples. So just like yesterday, okay, because I highlighted I highlight the time, I would like to focus so much on the time, or maybe the day that I am mentioning. Okay, so I would say yesterday she taught me English, but then I would say that this is unusual. Okay, usually the word yesterday is put at the end, so just like the second sentence. Okay, she taught me English yesterday. Yeah, because usually we would like to highlight the people or the things or the subjects that we are going to mention rather than the time. So usually if you say, yesterday she taught me English, then it is unusual, or we call it as a marked sentence or the marked theme. Okay, so later on, I will talk about that later on. Yeah, but then usually we will write a sentence like this: she taught me English yesterday. Or maybe the adverbial could be somewhere in the middle. Okay, so just like this one, she patiently taught me English yesterday. Okay, so we can have two adverbials put in the different places in a sentence. Yeah, so she patiently. So this one is actually modifying the word taught. Whereas yesterday is talking about a time. Yeah, so we can do it like this. Yeah, so that would be some of the things I would like to cover today. Okay, so it's just a very, very short one so that you'll find it useful. And if you want to revisit it, then it would be very easy. You just play it right away. Yeah, so next time we'll say something different. Okay, so stay tuned and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.